Well, hello everybody out there in YouTube land. This is Mike, and what we're working on today is we have a little Cushman scooter. It's about a 61, it's a Cushman 721 Highlander, and it's just what it is. It's just a little scooter, dang near as old as me. And what we're going to work on today is we're going to work on the clutch. The clutches on these things, I found through the hard way, they're a little challenging. So once you understand, they're pretty easy. So what we're gonna do first, I'll just give you a quick walk around just so you show the little bike. Like I said, it's a Cushman, and I've had it out running. The clutch that was on it was been giving some trouble, slipping, obviously worn out. And so we're gonna work on rebuilding it. So nice little bike, a little fun. And we're gonna get started on it here pretty quick. All right, once you got the walk around. All right, here we go. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get up here and we're gonna take this cover off, okay? Get up here so you can see. There we go. All right, that light up here. First thing is these they're single speed, and they're not an expanding drum clutch like most people would think. They're actually a compressing disc clutch like this. The disc is in the middle, there's two pressure plates, one on each side. So the first thing you wanna do is get this cover off. There's 4 bolts, pretty simple stuff. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm an old school mechanic, and when I was younger and working on stuff, and still now half the time, you don't have a book. We never had books. If you did, they were usually missing pages that were torn out. Obviously, we didn't have YouTube, and so basically you just went in there and you worked on stuff and figured it out, and you broke stuff. And I've already had this apart, and why I'm showing this is because it's kind of tricky, and I broke stuff getting it apart, so I learned a valuable lesson. And I'll hopefully pass on some of that information. I can show you what I broke, and well, I don't have the pieces, I pitched them a long time ago. But anyway, kind of walk you through it. So first thing you do is take this cover off, the safety cover, got a little dent in it here. There's 2 bolts down here, 1, 2, and there's a bolt that goes into the block, and there's another bolt that goes right in here. Looks pretty easy to get out, but they have a nut on the bottom, and the dang thing falls off, and it's hard to get back on. But anyway, I've got them out. So you take this cover off, and this nut, like I told you on this one here, it's kind of hard to see. Well, no, not hard to see. You're supposed to try to hold this nut up here and run a bolt in here. After about 2 or 3 times of taking this on and off, I said, forget that, and I put a riv nut in here. And now it's no problem. You just start that nut and run it right in there. It's just a little aluminum riv nut, and it doesn't take much to hold it. So anyway, you get the cover off, and you got the clutch right here. And it's pretty obvious. You can see here pretty easily how it works. These are the weights that swing in right here. There's 3 of those weights. They swing in, and the disc is in between here. I'll get you up here and show you a little closer. You can see the disc inside there. Now this disc is on here, looks pretty good because I've already put clutch plates on it, and we're gonna be taking them back out so I can show you. So that's how it works. All right, and then as these swing in, these 2 plates squeeze together, and that makes the thing go. I've already taken the drive chain off, and that should, because you have to take that off, and I just figured I'd save some time. So first thing we wanna do is get our safety glasses on. Get my little tools up in here. I did have most of the tools set out because I've had it on and off there a few times. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this little guy off here. Let's put my hearing protection on. Always wear your hearing protection. And your eye protection. All right. Ice cream bucket. Always have it. If you eat ice cream, you got some spare buckets. Good to keep parts. All right, take that off. Now we're going to get the puller out. And I've had this off enough times it'll probably pop off pretty easy, but these can be a son of a gun. Now, if you go to Dennis Carpenter's, where I bought some parts, and they're a good resource, denniscarpenter.com. He's big into the little Cushmans. They sell a tool that you just thread on the end of the shaft, and then you just give it a big whack. Well, I'm not a big fan of that. So just put a puller on it. And if you have to hit something, then you hit the puller. I'm going to put my earplugs back on. Got my safety glasses on. And I'm going to put a glove on just in case, because these pullers can kind of thump you once in a while. It'll probably pop. Yep, there it pops. Now, if you're taking one apart, it's not going to pop that easy. And this one sure as heck didn't pop that easy. That's why I made this. I had to put a lot of pressure on it. I was going to scar this up, so I made this little brass tip for my thing so I wouldn't damage that. But I had it really about all I could pull and then hit it with a hammer and it popped. But boy, by hitting it just with a hammer, it probably would have struggled. So I got that off. Don't need the gloves anymore. All right. That right there. Don't lose my tools. hearing protection back on. We'll take these three bolts, or three nuts off. And you'll notice these aren't factory. These are self-locking nuts that I've been using. I don't think they had self-locking nuts that are like that in 1961. They did, they sure didn't come on this thing. So now the trick is, I guess I need to explain it, is that that's why I take this apart. You have to take the clutch apart on the bike. You can't take the whole clutch off. Why, you ask? And I did the same thing. So I didn't do this. I didn't take these three bolts off when I did it the first time. I just pulled it. And I pulled and pulled. It was coming tough, but it came. And I was using my puller and turning and turning. And it was dragging pretty hard. Well, lo and behold, what it was doing was it was pulling. This keyway is right here. As you can see right there, that keyway. Very annoying. That key has to come off. And you can't get that off until you pull this thing apart. So you can't just take the big nut off and pull this off like you think. So you have to pull this clutch apart, take this off, then you got to dig that keyway out, and then it'll slide right off. So what I ended up doing was ruining this bushing inside this clutch disc. That really irritated me. When I realized what I did, and that's what happens, and there isn't anything on YouTube about that, and maybe it's in the book, but I don't have the book, and so I damaged that. I ended up making one myself. I've got a little lathe, and I made my own little bushing, and it turned out great, but there's more to the story. So anyway, next thing you want to do is you want to take that, like I said, get this off. Once that comes off, then you got it. And I've got a good little tool pliers here for digging these dang keyways out, because that one's that's a shallow one. Turn this a little bit so you see maybe. You see how it doesn't stick up there very high, but it's in there. So this thing here is actually meant for pulling off little like Christmas trees on plastic Christmas trees. So it's got razor sharp edges, and it'll grip really good. There we go. There it is. Little Woodruff key. Throw that in the bucket. Now, well, I guess I could have taken this one off first. So that didn't hurt anything. Now you can pull this disc right off. Before, it wouldn't have come off, and that's what happened the first time. There's 3 springs here, too, that come off of this other pressure plate. This thing kind of has 2 pressure plates that squeeze together, and then it has a disc with clutch material on each side, so it falls right off. And when it's all together, you can't tell what's going on. I kept pulling and pulling and pulling, and I ruined this bushing, just destroyed it. I made that one on the lathe and pressed it back in there, and it's perfect. That's still not all the story. So anyhow, so I get this off, and these are new discs. So I get it all off, and I had ordered discs for it before I took it apart, just thinking, I'll just have these parts ready because I know they're bad. So I took it off, and I drilled out the old rivets, the old brass rivets, and the disc, once I got them apart, it was just all wavy, wobbly. Like, oh, that's not good. Because it's real thin. You can see how thin the little metal disc is right there. I'm not going to take that apart, obviously. But I thought, well, it's going to be fine. I'll run it. And you can see the sprocket is really bad. The teeth are all bent over. This thing's got some miles on it. Who knows how many? It doesn't have a speedometer. But anyway, I thought, well, it'll be fine. So I riveted it together. Long story, I ended up cracking the damn thing right there. Just a big crack right in that. That just irritated the living crap out of me. So anyway, so I thought, well, you know what? It'll still be fine. It's not going to run. Nobody's going to drive this probably 100 miles the rest of its life. I thought it'll be fine. But it was still pretty wavy. And I riveted the rest of them together. That might even been the last one. Put it all together, and it was so wavy. And I hadn't yet trimmed smoothed these up on the lathe. It drug really bad. So I left the thing loose, and it was fine, but I just didn't feel good about it. So what I ended up doing is just buying a whole new disc with a nice straight center section, nice beautiful sprockets, and on top of it, the original is a 14 tooth, and you'll see that this new one is a 12 tooth, and it's in really nice shape. This thing is geared really super fast. It's frightening to drive. I'll bet it'll run 40 miles an hour, and it doesn't ever need to go that fast. So I thought, I'm just going to buy a new hub. It's not that much more. I can't put stuff together like that. I ran it for a little bit, and it's fine. Probably lasts forever that way, but a good mechanic's not going to do that. This will go into my spare parts and memory lane of why not to do dumb stuff. So I screwed up 2 different things. That's part of being an old mechanic, when you're doing stuff and you're kind of learning as you go. And I learned on that one. I didn't think I'd ever break that, but I hit it one time too hard. So anyway, that's bad. So anyhow, while I had it apart this last time, I took a lathe and just spun these down, just turned off about 1,000 because they were just super rusty. They looked about like the backside of this one. Well, I couldn't trim out here because these studs stick out. So you can see I trimmed, took maybe 1,000 or 2,000 off of that. I took about 2,000 off of that. and it's really nice, very nice. So now we're going to go back together. And obviously the going together is the opposite, but once again, you can't build the clutch out here on the ground and then put it up there. You have to build it on the bike, and that is hard to believe that it was designed that way, but that's how they did it. So what you want to do is, first thing you got to do is put this guy on, and then you're going to need your disc with the clutch plates, and of course the sprocket's got to go inside, and we'll put a little grease on that. Because once you put this together, you'll never get grease. Interesting thing is, on the original, there's a little spring ball right here that you take a pointy grease gun, stick in there, and you could grease the inside. And there's a little recess inside there, and you could fill that hub with grease. Once you get together, you can't get on that, I don't think. If you did, it'd be near impossible. And you'd get grease everywhere, and then the clutch would slip like crazy. This one here comes, this is from, I got it off eBay, I'm not even sure who it was. They're nice people, they're fast shipping. There's a key hole right here, but there's no, it's not clear through the brass bushing, and I'm not even going to bother drilling that out. I thought about it for a second, I thought no. And it's got a little recess in the center there. I'm just going to kind of put some grease in there. You know, this thing will run a long time. So we're going to put a little grease on there. Just any gun grease, any high-speed grease, doesn't take much. A little black grease right there. Stick that in there. And try not to get too much on the plates, but you know what? This thing isn't going to climb any hills. It does fine. Put a little grease on the fiber material, and it'll last even longer. So just a light coating. Most of it's going to get rubbed off anyway when you go on. All right. So we got that on. Now we'll put our clutch in. So you got to build this thing right on the bike. And this one's newer, and I should have probably test fit that one. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there it goes. There we go. Yeah. That's a snug fit, or slip fit. Perfect. This is the way it's supposed to be. All right, this is my first ever endeavor on a Cushman, so what a lesson. But that's okay, and I did a bunch of other stuff. When I got this, it's my neighbor's, it's not mine. It was stuck. Both valves were stuck, exhaust intake, and it wouldn't turn over. I pulled the head off, and they were just full of just junk. But the cylinder was good, and the piston was actually good. I didn't take it apart, thankfully. I didn't have to. The valves, I just sprayed them and sprayed them and sprayed them, and was able to turn them with my fingers, and then started pushing them gently up and down, and would turn the engine over, and I got them moving and sprayed them and let them soak, and by gosh, it came out of it. And then I opened them up, and I took an X-Acto knife, and I scraped the inside of the valve seat, and scraped the valve seat, or the valve side as well. Not perfect, but I figured it'll wear in as it runs. And I had a heck of a time getting started. I actually ended up belting it up, and oddly enough, these things, I don't know, maybe these engines are used for other applications, because I got a pulley right here. This slickest button to use. And so I built a little project on my lathe, put a pulley on it. When this thing's on here, I mounted it up, belted it to my lathe, and got that thing spinning, and shot a leaf in, and it took right off. Well, not right off. And when it started, it hasn't been run since probably, they said, about the 1970s, early 70s. I killed a lot of mosquitoes, I'm telling you that. Probably took a year or so off my life. It was smoking, and boy, rust flying everywhere. Interesting. It's a cloud. But got the door open, it wasn't too bad. But anyway, that, and it had to fix the throttle cable on it, and the gas tank needed cleaned up, so this all had to come off. I've had this thing completely apart, except the engine, thankfully. I didn't touch it, other than just the head. And it didn't have a lot of compression, but I let it run for hours, and it's better. It's way better. So anyhow, now we're ready to go together here. Now I get sidetracked here. So we got to put this guy where our springs on. Shouldn't be talking while I'm doing this. So put these springs on. These hold the two pressure, we'll call them pressure plates. Hold them apart when you're just idling, so it's not just rubbing all the time. So it's kind of spring loaded there. Got to get on that right now. And these pins don't really need any lube or anything on them. They're just metal on metal. They're not much, and they look good. Oh yeah, got the keyway in. All right, put that key in there. I don't have something handy. Let's get that. Just get that grease out of there. Don't get most of that grease out of there. It'll hydraulic, and get it in there. All right, that's pretty good. All right. Try not to waste too much time here so you guys can move on to the next project. And you just tap this in here nice and light. And it needs to be the same angle as the taper. Probably somebody out there telling me I'm doing this wrong, but that's how it's going to be done. All right, there we go. That's on there. Now we got to just line this up, and these weights, of course, have to be swung the right way, and I always want to put this on the wrong way. The pulley side goes out. So there and that, and there's the weights like that, and the bottom one will stay. It's the top two that you kind of have to hold. We'll put it so the key weighs up high, straight up, relatively close, and we'll get this thing started. This is why it's a pain, trying to get this all going together at the same time. It'd be nice to build it on a bench, but you can't because of that darn keyway. But you know how many times you have to do it, so it's not too bad. All right. There we go. All right. Here we are. Now we'll get our big nut down here. It's got a lock washer, which I'm definitely not a fan of them, but whatever, I guess that's okay. I usually don't use lock washers, but we'll leave that one on there. All right, we're gonna put my earring protection back on. Make sure everything is kind of loose. We'll just snug that. There we go. Oh yeah, looks good. All right. Now we're ready for the 3 nuts. And it just had regular nuts, but I thought, oh, self-locking nuts would be a lot better. Should never come loose. They weren't loose when I took it apart the first time. Okay. Air plugs back on. And you want to tighten these up evenly. Make sure. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah. All right, that's good. That's pretty darn much it. I'll get you in here closer. You can see it kind of about back where it was, except now I have a good disc and a 12-tooth sprocket on there. So you can see that disc turning right in there. Yeah, just like a beauty. And so once you spin this engine up, it'll push those 2 discs together. Actually, this one will go against that one and squeeze it that way. Sort of like a disc brake. And then it'll make you move. And hopefully it won't go 40 mile an hour. 25 or 30 is more than enough on this thing. But yeah, that's a done job. So otherwise I need to torque this down. And I'll do that off camera. I'm not gonna worry about that. But anyway, hopefully this helps you guys out. I've been, like I said, it's been kind of a little fun. I do like to work on these bikes as much as I can, or anything. I got some little Hondas and stuff I mess around with. And it's always a kind of a challenge to learn something new, and this was definitely something new. It's crude, and they quit making these in 65. Well, this actual model, I think they quit making in 62 or 63. But they quit making two-wheelers at 65. Still kept making go-karts and not go-karts, golf carts, and what else they made? Something else. Three-wheelers and stuff like that for meter maids and things like that. Good little dependable machine, but I'm sure they saw the writing on the wall when they saw those little Hondas coming out. Like, we can't compete with that. This is something I would have made in an old barn with a welder and a stick of gum. So anyhow, that's how you put the clutch on. Remember, you can't just take this nut off and pull that off. That was a lesson learned the hard way. When I finally got it apart, or got it off, and then I realized parts were falling out, I thought, what the heck? And then I realized what I'd done. So that's part of being an old mechanic. You learn things the hard way, and that was a hard one, but not too expensive, and learn some stuff, and it's going to be a nice bike. So it's from a neighbor. He's going to sell it probably. It's an estate sale item that they want to get running, and we'll put her back together. And that's about the last thing I have on it. I'll put the chain back on, and this thing will be ready to go. So anyway, it's a pleasure, and best of luck on your Cushman or anything else you're working on. See you.